What's up? What's up? You are now tuned into the Aallyah Wright Show with your host, me, of course, Aallyah. Today is yet another day where I'll help you figure out how to show up, show out, and make meaningful steps towards your personal transformation, whether it's your love life, your career trajectory, or your money mindset. Every episode, we share stories that connect purpose, passion, and people. We're all about alignment, intention, and elevation over here, okay? So grab your coffee, your wine, whatever it is, and let's get right to the point. I am excited because today we have a woman who is beyond phenomenal. She is multidimensional. She combines her passion, skills, and expertise to help impact her community. She is also a woman of faith, a creative visionary, and a trailblazing attorney. She utilizes her platform to educate the community, not only on ways to build wealth, but also live a purposeful life. She is also my high school classmate. Please help me welcome Miss Shantā Sykes. Hey,
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing good.
Well, I'm definitely excited to be here. Also, thank you for the invitation. I know I already thank you, behind the scenes, but I just thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk more about, what it is that I'm passionate about, but also, just to give other people, I guess an insight or more things about, what I want to do, and also how, what I do coincides with what you said, purpose, passion, and people. So I think what you're doing is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's get right into it. I know I just asked you how you're doing, but I feel like, we really have to check on each other, right? It's been a long 2 years plus, and even before then, it feels like we have just been through so much, not only as a country, but as Black people. So I'm checking in. How are you really doing?
I can honestly say that I'm doing well. I believe that we are just now sort of kind of getting back into what we would call the norm, or I guess the new norm, even though, of course, the world has not been the same or will never be the same. I think that everybody can attest to the fact that during COVID, that mental health was an issue, depression, all of these really just new things, or maybe things just rising to the surface, that we neglected. But I can honestly say, I've had my journey to where I am now. And I can definitely say I'm definitely in a much better place, mentally, emotionally, but really just all areas. But it's been a work in progress. I can say that.
Yes, I can definitely, first of all, I feel you on all that, and I share the same sentiment. I feel like I'm in a pretty great place, honestly, and I'm well. My health is good, my mental is good, and I'm just happy to be alive, present, and here.
Right.
So thank God for that. You're an attorney. And that is so cool to me.
Thank you.
I know, of course, you're from the Mississippi Delta. Growing up as a child in Mississippi, did you always have a vision of being a lawyer? And also, what experiences through your adolescence would you say helped propelled you to pursue, a career in the legal field?
Yeah, so actually, I always wanted to become a pediatrician, and my bachelor's is actually in biology. So I kind of have a, an interesting story to how I kind of ended up in law. A lot of people are always kind of confused, like, well, weren't you like pre-med or something like that? So I started off as really a chemistry major, and then I changed to biology. And so Tougaloo, which is where I graduated from, they have an early ID program, which essentially is you can get accepted into med school early. And so for me, I was like, okay, guy, if this is not, the path I'm supposed to pursue, then please don't allow me, to go down that path, because, going into medicine, that's an investment. I mean, that's at least 7 years. Law school is nearly not as long. And so I applied, my sophomore year. I did get accepted. And so for me, that was when I really started contemplating, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And so that was sort of kind of the journey. I still wasn't 100% sure as I kind of, matriculated through Tougaloo around my junior year, maybe, my pastor actually, he was like, well, have you ever thought about law? He's like, I really see you being a lawyer. He was like, how about you take some classes just to see? And so honestly, I still was on the fence about medicine. So I actually had always said, well, if I can't do med school, I probably could do law school. And so I took a class, I took a couple classes, I joined the pre-law society. And from then on, I mean, my journey into law school was pretty quick. It was actually really last minute. Like I applied toward the tail end, like they were only accepting a few more students. And so for me, I know for a fact that was all God. And I can honestly say that even when I got to law school, I still wasn't sure. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like I had a sense of, okay, I know that you opened this door, but I didn't really know what it would lead to. It still kind of took me, just going through law school to finally figure out, okay, now I see what I can do with this.
It's so interesting how you say a few times you contemplated the decision on what should I do? Am I doing the right thing? Am I going in the right field? All of those questions. And I think that's important to kind of highlight, because I think a lot of times as we're growing, we're evolving, we're making these decisions, and sometimes we're not always 100% invested in those decisions, but it's the, I guess, the motivation and the drive and the persistence to continue and not give up and see it
right.
Right. Because I know there's been plenty of times I was like, oh my goodness, should I be in journalism? Is this what I really want to do? And then something happens, a conversation or a person comes and talks to me about, or whatever it is, something sparks open, why, the reason why I decided to do it in the first place. So I said all that to really say that's awesome that you stuck through, and then your pastor gave you that push to say, try this thing, because sometimes other people see it in us and we don't see it ourselves.
Right. I 100% agree.
Yeah. What would you say, even through that experience going from Tougaloo to then law school,
right?
What were some of the things that you would say you learned from that experience that you carry on now, even as you're in your field?
Wow, I think that's probably a lot, because I think a lot of people don't talk about enough, the transition from undergrad to, either master or just professional school. Like that's another transition that I don't think a lot of people just realize. And so for me, it was a complete transition, or a complete, I guess you could say, change of mind in, my study habits, how I approach things in undergrad. Like it was a totally different world. It was really new. So it's kind of like, starting out over again, but just on another level. And so I think one of the greatest things I probably learned was, I know a lot of people talk about, imposter syndrome and things like that, but I didn't realize how much, I was questioning myself until I got to that point. Or that's when I started, it's like, okay, can I do this? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? But there was something in me that was still like, okay, well, don't give up. I feel like God had me here for a reason. And so it wasn't until my second year, I came across where I took the class from one of the only Black professors there. And I like to tell this story because she really, changed the trajectory, not only law school, but really my life. And so I never forget, I walked into her office and she told me, she's like, I've been waiting on you. And basically, she gave me, I don't want to say a lecture, but she really gave me the push I need, like the push that I needed. And I'll never forget her asking me, she was like, you're brilliant. She's like, are you afraid of your own greatness? And I was honestly taken aback. I'm like, why is she asking me this? I'm like, no, of course not. So in the moment, I just said no, but I reflected, and I often do reflect on that day all of the time, because that was when the turning point came for me, not only in law school, but really in life. And so that's kind of when things started coming together. I was like, okay, now I know what I want to do with law. It really wasn't until that moment. And so it was really what my pastor would call a divine moment. But more than anything, I feel like along our journey, we need people to remind us of who we are. And that was what she did for me in that moment. She reminded me, okay, Shantā, this is who you are. So I need you to be that
Yes.
person. Like, let's become that person.
I love that. And oh, I love that so much. We're gonna have to pull that clip out and and make sure we emphasize that point because it's important, especially as Black women. I feel like we endure so much, and sometimes we get lost along the way and we forget who we
Right.
are. And those reminders are so important and
Yes,
crucial to
absolutely.
our growth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Uh, so, one, how long have you been a lawyer, and talk a little bit about, what do you specialize in your practice and, all those sorts of
Okay.
things.
So I have, I guess you could say, been an attorney since 2020, which of course was crazy because, we took the bar, we graduated during the pandemic. So that was definitely, it was different because we didn't do it with nobody else and do it, right? So that was different. That's when I was officially licensed, of course, after I passed my bar. But I didn't start, I guess you can say, practicing until 2021, I believe. I always tell people, I was like, I don't know the difference between 2020 and 2021.
Right.
But I want to say it was 2021. Yeah, it was 2021 when I actually ended up starting my own practice. And actually I was looking, for the longest. And of course, let me insert that I did move back home to the Delta. And so I was looking around for jobs, sort of kind of trying to take what most people would call the traditional route. A lot of people were telling me you should let somebody mentor you first, or you should work at a law firm first. Now, I did know, or rather, I always had the desire to open up my own firm, but not as quickly as I did. And so honestly, I just got tired of waiting. I mean, I really did. And finally, God was like, okay, go ahead and start. And I'm like, well, that wasn't my plan. What do you mean, go ahead and start? And so I started going through the process, which entrepreneurship in and of itself is a challenging process, a lot of starting and stopping or pausing and modifying. So it's kind of been a process for me. It hasn't even been a full year yet, actually. I'm coming upon a year next month, as far as how long my practice has been open. So that's kind of my journey, as far as how long I've been practicing. Now, what I specialize in, or what I'm most passionate about. So just to give you a little bit more, I guess you can say, background on that, before I got to MC, I had this idea of forming a group, like a group of Black professionals. And at the time, that's what I thought it was going to be. I knew that I was passionate about wealth. I knew that I was passionate about restoring wealth or teaching wealth, in the Black community, but I didn't quite know how, exactly I wanted to do that. And so that's something that's been in the works at least probably since 2015-ish, somewhere around there. And so I kind of just, kept writing different things down. And then when I got to law school and I took entertainment law, I was like, okay, this is something I could do. And so essentially I took wealth, where I realized that law could be a tool for me to teach wealth or build wealth in the Black community. And so I feel like a lot of people don't really make that connection, or it's kind of like, well, how is that? And so I started looking at the different areas where how I could use law to build wealth. Okay, so of course I look at owning a business, starting your own business. Of course, having a business, you need to be able to protect yourself. You need to protect, your intellectual property, which gets into, trademark and copyright. And then I also thought about, when it comes down to legacy, having a will, because there was one thing I actually wrote a paper, not on wills, but I wrote a paper on the amount of land loss that has happened in the Black community. It's like over $3 billion now. It's probably more in 2022. And so realizing that we don't create wills or trust, or just have some type of method or instrument of actually leaving wealth. And so those were the three areas: entrepreneurship, intellectual property, and estate planning were the three areas I saw where I could help basically or teach people how to build wealth.
Yes, and I feel like that's those three areas are so important and vital to a place like the Mississippi Delta. And
Right.
even, we've just seen this surge of folks who are becoming entrepreneurs. So to
Right.
have someone like you from this place looking like the people who are creating these businesses to help them get their, get their documents ordered, everything, all of their business in order, essentially.
Right.
I think, yeah, that's so amazing. And now I'm thinking back a little bit to, your journey again, not starting out in the legal field and,
Right.
transitioning from the medical field to the legal field. And I'm thinking of this question around representation and diversity. We know we can probably look across all industries. We know most are predominantly white.
Right.
And I looked at some recent data from the American Bar Association, and the latest numbers I found showed that 86% of lawyers were non-Hispanic whites. So that lets you know the percentage of Black folks who are in the legal system.
Right.
Now I kind of have a two-part question.
Okay.
Why do you think the legal field has been slow to diversify? And two, do you think that by you being a young Black woman from the Mississippi Delta and folks seeing that can then lead to more exposure, and letting young folks know that this is a career that you can pursue?
Yeah, I think that was a really good question. So I think your first question was, why is it that, the legal field was started to diversify? I think it's because, traditionally speaking, and, the same is really for the medicine as well. When you talk about those type of professional fields, and I think a lot of it has to do with historically, the barriers that exist just to even get into law or medicine, but specifically law. And then once you get into law school, being able to handle the curriculum, get through that, and passing the bar, because that's also another major barrier when it comes to getting into that field. And honestly, most attorneys will tell you that taking the bar is not honestly that necessary. It doesn't really, let me say this, it really doesn't test your ability to practice. It's really just something historically that has been put in place, I personally feel like, to make it more challenging for minorities, be it Black, Hispanics, whoever it is, to get into that field. Because another thing that I realized, a lot of whites, usually when they're in law school, they have a history of lawyers in their family. Somewhere in the line, most of the time you would see there's already some type of legal presence, which is going to be very different from a Black person, because usually we're going to be the first generation. We're going to be the first person. And so just, generally speaking, what we have to deal with and face as being a minority is going to be drastically different than what they would have to deal with, which kind of brings me to another issue. I think another reason why it's probably been slow to diversify is because we need a different type of support to get us through law school. It's not just money, but of course that's a major thing. That's debt, right? Being able to provide for yourself while you're in law school, having the family support. Everybody doesn't have a familiar support system. Having, the emotional support. Mental health really just became, I guess, a more widespread thing after COVID. But before that, that wasn't, something to think about. And so I feel like for us, not just, the academic part of it, but I think a major reason why we may have difficulties or questions or even, trying to pursue, or once we pursue, we sort of kind of have a hiccup, is because we don't really have that support. And what we need it's not necessarily presented, because again, most law schools are going to be predominantly white, right? I mentioned that I only had 2 Black professors my entire time. And so, which goes to your next question, we need to see more people who look like us. And I think that's also, a major reason, because there aren't enough attorneys, enough Black people necessarily, I guess, who people aren't seeing, who are in their field. And then I think the other thing is there's a huge misconception about lawyers. Most people feel like lawyers are intimidating, that we're scammers, that we lie. And I think, historically, Black people have had a distrust of the government, of medicine. And so I think that's probably another reason, is because we kind of have these, preconceived notions. Some of it may be true, but, not all of it is true. And so I think that those are probably some good reasons as to why it has been slow. And then your second question was, remind me what your second question was.
You actually answered it, the representation.
The representation.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you think that your presence being in the Delta will allow, other young women to see that this is a career path for them as well.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with that. I know for me, because I spoke to some students at Tugu not too long ago, they wanted me to speak on, because initially I was going to go into health law, because a lot of people don't know that's an area. And I think another reason is because people don't really know all the things you can do within the, the area of law. Most people think criminal justice. Yeah. Most people think TV stuff, but you can literally do anything, like anything in law. Like, even for example, I could be in the education law field. I mean, you will find in every area, you're going to find contracts, you're going to find terms, you're going to find policies. In all of those areas, you're going to need an attorney. And so I think another reason is because people just don't know how much you can actually do, not only with the a law degree, of course, because some people don't always practice, because you can really do a lot with the skills you gain. But I think a lot of people just have a misconception about what you can actually do in law. You can literally do anything.
And I think, that's why this conversation is so important that we're having, because not only are you talking about your journey, we're educating people on, right, the legal field. I want to kind of, not necessarily switch gears a little bit, but I do want to move into something that I saw on your Facebook page, your Black Wealth series, which I thought was pretty cool. And you've, talked so much just about how you're passionate about, building wealth in the Black community. Can you just talk a little bit about your Black Wealth series? What is it? Why was this important to you?
So the Black Wealth series was something that I thought of. It was earlier before I actually did it. And I was kind of contemplating. I was like, do I still want to do it? But I decided, okay, let's just go ahead and do it, because, we are procrastinate, have come up with all these reasons. And so I had a little bit, apprehension of doing it, because, me speaking online and speaking in person is like different. So for me, it's like I have a lot of nervousness about it. And so really the idea really just came as a way for me to educate, because that's another thing that I want to do as an attorney, not just, provide these services, but a large part of that is really educating, the Black community or anybody on, okay, how can you providing these services for business owners, or in general, like, how can this actually help me? And so for me, I'm always thinking of, what can I do creatively, that's going to be innovative, where I can educate people this on law, but it's also going to be relevant. And so I decided to do the Black Wealth series. I believe I did it for Black History Month. And so actually, it was sort of kind of crazy. A couple of my IG videos were deleted. I had a lot of technical stuff going on, but nonetheless, I think it was a really good trial run for me, because I do want to continue doing it. And so my first purpose of doing the Black Wealth series was, one, I wanted to redefine wealth, because I feel like wealth, Black wealth, generational wealth, it has sort of kind of become a trending topic, a buzzword to the point of I almost don't even want to say it, but I was like, you know what, let me give people another perspective. And so that's what I really wanted to do. So I think the first week I had purpose for wealth, because for me, there's no point in having, and not just money, but the intangibles part of things that we don't think about this wealth as well, like, peace and freedom and time. I wanted to talk about, or lay the foundation of, it makes no sense to have wealth if you don't have a purpose for your wealth, and if you don't have purpose in your wealth. And after that, I believe we talked about creative wealth, right? Pretty much, and this can be many different things, but pretty much like using your creativity to create your own wealth, and not just in the aspect of, because usually when people hear creative, they hear arts and all of that, but knowing that you can be creative and simply being a solutionist. Me coming up with a solution is still me being creative and kind of like, creating my own path of wealth. I also talked about historical wealth, which is more so, again, educating people on the wealth that we've always had in the Black community, but we lost it for many different reasons. Of course, we know there was what happened in Tulsa. It was so many different things, but pretty much giving people a timeline of kind of like our journey, through wealth. And I don't remember what my last topic was, but ideally, I just wanted to give people a different perspective on wealth. And I really wanted to emphasize that there's no one way or one right way to get wealth. And I think, on social media, you have so many people saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that. And what I want people to realize is you can choose your own path, right? What may be best for somebody else may not be my path to wealth, but I just want everybody to know that everybody has an opportunity, to create their own wealth.
Yeah. And, with you talking about this education piece, in my mind, that helps build this trust gap between attorneys and the client or community. And I think that's also a form of impact. And I want you to, just describe, what would impact look like for you in this profession? How do you want to create positive change through your career?
I think for me, impact, first, I think impact starts with me being able to, plant that seed. I'm always making analogies to plants and seeds. It's just my thing. But I think being able to plant a seed of me just simply educating, saying, hey, you do know that regardless of your circumstance or background, you can build wealth. Because I may not necessarily be the person to water it, right? It may be somebody else, but I can at least plant seeds in people, even if they don't necessarily, come to my law firm, get a service from me. I can at least plant seeds. And so for me, more than anything, I want to be able to educate people in some form or fashion, or rather the aspect being, okay, I planted a seed. And so if they keep coming back, okay, maybe that seed will start germinating, right? Maybe they'll start actually making changes in their life. And so besides, me making content and things like that, I think not only, well, let me say this, I also know how I live can make impact on people as well. Because I think a lot of times we kind of underestimate what we do in just our everyday, lives. That actually impacts people way more a lot of times than what we do in quote unquote public. And so for me, just realizing like, okay, what I'm talking about, this is not just, for show, like this is my mindset. And so for me, it's also changing the people's mindset. That's a big thing for me, because if you never change people's mindset, you never change their behavior. And so for me, first of all, I have to dig up all of these myths and misconceptions. Then I have to go back and plant something else so that your mindset can be changed. So for me, impact looks like changing your mind. it looks like making you question, your habits or your behavior, what you've been doing for a long period of time that maybe it didn't work. And then of course, impact lastly for me is just living what I actually talk about, because I'm not a person to just say things just for the sake of doing it. Like, no, I want to be able to be a reflection of what I'm saying. And I think for me, one thing that I always say to myself, I was like, my work will speak for itself. And, the Bible calls it fruit, but ideally I want to be able to have fruit. And by that, I mean, having people that have learned something from me and they've been able to be successful with it. So that's what impact looks like for me.
Yes, we love to see it and hear it too. But yeah, you've created resources already. You've mentioned, we've talked about the Black Wealth series, and I also know that you've created the Business Vision Guide. Talk to us about that and how can people access those materials?
So currently, I'll just go ahead and say at the beginning, the Business Vision Guide is free, but I'm actually going to modify it. And so I think when I modify it, probably won't be free anymore. But now you can access it either from my business IG page or my Instagram page, which is Miss Shantā Sykes. You can just click the link in my bio and then you'll see something that says Get Vision Guide, and you can just click that link. But for me, I think the idea came of, kind of at the top of the year. Everybody always talking about vision, making a vision board. But I really wanted to not only talk about vision, but sort of kind of give people, a strategy to actually execute the vision. And so for me, a lot of people may not know, I'm really a visionary at my core. Like, I'm a visionary, I'm a strategist, solution. Like, that's really, it's easy for me to come up with a solution. It's easy for me, to create an idea, or you tell me an idea and then I come up with other ideas from what you said. And so I really wanted to give business owners, in particularly, sort of kind of structure, because, a lot of people talk about starting your own business, but we don't talk about the structure that we really, need to have a thriving business. And so for me, I'm a foundation person. For me, I feel like if you don't have a good foundation, it really doesn't matter. And so I feel like vision is sort of kind of a foundational thing, just for business owners. And so it was really kind of a mini guide trying to help business owners. What is vision, right? And so I talk about a little bit about vision, about purpose, and then creating your goals from your vision, because a lot of people feel like goals equates to vision. Is actually not the same thing. Mm-hmm. I was like, if you ask somebody why do they do what they do, and if they can't tell you, it's because they only have goals. They don't have a vision. Like, if I can't actually get to the heart of the matter of what is it that you're doing and your why, it's just a goal. And so, and another thing I like to say is, vision is fulfilled, goals are just met. And so me really trying to, again, do the mindset shift, even though they might not necessarily, I guess, directly see it, but me sort of kind of trying to shift their mind from, it's not just about making money, but kind of going back to what you said, making an impact. And so I just want business owners to know, okay, you need to have a vision. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing, be it good or bad, just have that evaluation. And then just kind of, go through, set your goals, create a timeline, and then create your action steps, is what I call it, or action plan, so that you can actually be able to do it. So that's sort of kind of how that came about. I just wanted to really just create a resource. I always think about myself, what is it that I need or that I wish I had in the beginning? And so that's sort of kind of why I created it.
Yes. And I guess, well, we're unfortunately almost out of time, and I hate it, and we're gonna have to do a part 2. I know this.
We can definitely do this.
I have one more question for you. Okay. The 3 pillars around, this show: purpose, passion, people. It's why I do what I do. And you've illustrated and described that many times throughout this conversation. It's why you do what you do as well. When you think about those 3 words, what does it mean for you?
So when I think about, purpose, I think about a few things. I think about why. I think about this is the reason I was born. Like, this is the reason God created me. Passion, I think about God gave me a passion, to lead me to my purpose. And then people, I'm actually going to kind of connect all of them. Purpose is the reason I was born. God gave me passion to reflect my purpose to impact people. And so I think, those are they're kind of all interconnected. I think God will use people to show you your purpose or remind you of your purpose. He'll also use people to show you your passions. So I think they're all really just, working together.
So what's next for Shantā? What should we be looking out for?
So you should be looking out for, I've actually been working on some other things for, business owners, entrepreneurs, creators, because, while I can do some things within, my practice, I can't necessarily do everything. I'm pretty much limited to legal stuff. And so I've really been, realizing and kind of just working on, okay, what else can I provide to business owners, that they would need? So I'm not going to say everything, but just know that you all will be hearing hearing some things from me, but also seeing some things from me about what I'm specifically working on for entrepreneurs, creatives, but also professionals. So I'm just going to say that I'm going to bridge the gap between creatives and professionals. You just have to wait to see.
See, of course, she's going to leave us hanging like that, but that is okay because we will be following and checking and sharing and everything to support you. From the bottom of my heart, I just really want to say thank you so much. This conversation means so much to me, and I know it's going to mean so much to so many people. I'm happy to know you're back in the Delta. I can't wait to see how you transform lives. I'm so grateful to know you and grateful to be in this space with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aallyah. Thank you for this platform. I'm excited for you as well because I believe, you providing this platform for people to have conversations about it. I think it's really going to be transformative. So I can't wait to see the rest of the episodes because I'm definitely going to be tuning in.